Hello, welcome to Skull RPG Podcast. My name's Dwight Skull.
My name's Jacob Skull.
And today we're going to teach you how to tell your story.
So for the next about week's worth of content, we're going to be running through different types of things you can have in your into your session. We're quasi looking more towards like a Cyberpunk type game or a Shadowrun in this, but it could be generalized to a lot of other things. So the first one we're going to be doing is heists and how to run a good heist.
Now, of course, we've done heists. We've covered heists in general. But we want to focus on how one would run a heist if you're going to run a Shadowrun or a Cyberpunk game.
Or a GURPS, kind of like that.
Yeah. So it's a futuristic sci-fi game. I think when we covered these concepts before, we covered them more from a D&D, Pathfinder, high fantasy, low
perspective.
Fantasy. Yeah, so let's just deal with it in a different way. So, first of all, I'm going to make an unashamed pitch at our book. If you want to go, you can go to Amazon and look up RPG Adventure Ideas. You'll see a book by Jacob and I. And in there, we have an entire chapter on how to run heists. And so we're going to use that to move off of. A heist is basically kind of an Ocean's 11 type of game. Done in the future, you have a lot more different types of options, right? So what I like to do is, you'll see in this book that I have a lot of charts. And so what I like to do is I have a heist obstacle chart. And so I talk about what the obstacle is, what location it may be in, and then how to bypass it 3 different ways, because I want to give my players options. So let's say in this futuristic world, your players need to break into a top secret lab that's owned by one of the corporations in the city that you're in. And you need to steal maybe a new augmentation or maybe a new type of rigger gear or some sort of like droid, something like that.
Yeah.
For another mission. So this is like, if you think Ocean's 11, they had to go steal the thing that would allow them to do the EMP burst. It was called the pinch. So they had to go steal the pinch, set up the pinch, run the pinch, and then they could do the rest of the thing. So this is kind of the heist before the main event. And so in this case, your obstacles could be obviously guards. You could have infrared sensors, motion detectors. You could have automated kind of robot guard dogs. You could have pressure plates. You could also have
really high-tech locks.
Even worse, you could have some humanoid turrets that are controllable, things of that nature, and cameras everywhere that would alert other people to come in, right? So it's like, this may only have a skeleton staff of, let's say, 15 guards, which is still a huge deal, but they could literally call in an army within 6 minutes if you're not careful.
It might also have a mech on board, so you might have a giant mech that you have to somehow
Full
get
on
around.
Mech, right. So, of course, one obstacle would be the actual internet, right? You're going to need to hack into this place, see if you can't subvert their security cameras, see if you can't subvert their auto turrets.
Mm-hmm.
But in so doing, every time you attempt to subvert one of these things, you could also be found out, which would mean that they would lock down their security even more because they're expecting something, and that's the last thing you want. You could do that hack in real time, where you're not doing it beforehand, you're doing it as you're going. You could look at putting a plant in, trying to get one of your guys or somebody you know to be a plant, or bribing one of the existing guards, although that might be impossible. But putting a guy in to work for you that will basically be able to like plant in a device. So in this case, like Ocean's 11 is a great example. They were able to put a plant in to get into the back room where all the servers were, and then he could hook up a little diode that would allow their hacker guy to control what the cameras saw. So he's not overriding the cameras, he's just overriding what the security guards see when they look at the cameras, and it's on this weird loop. So you can kind of do the same sort of thing. You really think about it in that terms of like, what obstacles do you want to have in this? How many floors are there? What floor is each guard sitting in? Are there certain rooms? Are there locked rooms? Is there really good tech somewhere else? I mean, literally think of this as if you are playing a video game where it's, if they find this one back room, there's some really cool stuff, but there's also a guy in there who's a little challenging. Or this door opens up the door to kind of a mech-wearing guy or a full-out mech, who now is a really huge challenge rating. You can think of him like a final big bad boss type of a guy that they either have to get around, kill, or somehow incapacitate. Or they could choose not to go through that door, right? They can choose to leave some other artifacts lying there. It could also be that your heist is very specific, that they only need and can only obtain one item.
Mm-hmm.
And they maybe have to plant a fake item so that no one notices that it's gone for a handful of days, so that you have the opportunity to use it before, you have everybody coming to look for you. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do a heist.
I mean, the other concept, too,
Yeah.
is you're not necessarily heisting to get something out of it. You could be heisting to get something in.
Right. You could be putting false data in. You could
malware in their system, so when your true heist goes off, it's easier for you to hack.
Right. So many different things, right? So the first heist in like the Ocean's 11 is they have to get the guy in to get back to the server room. And so he has to do it in such a way to not arouse suspicion. And there's like 3 or 4 people running cons at the same time to make that happen. So in a lot of ways, look at what your players are playing, how they're playing, and figure out what would be the best way to go. Now, that said, the nice thing about having some sort of alarm system is they really can't go in loud. They can't go in just, guns blazing unless they think they can get in and out in 6 minutes.
Especially because if it's a corp, they always have more bodies to throw at you. And even if you're the biggest, baddest characters, there's eventually enough cannon fodder is going to grind everybody.
Right. Or they could burn you. And we'll talk about burning you in a different episode and how that all works. But this gives you hopefully a great concept of how you can run a heist in your own game. I would literally do a quick draw of the area that I was going to have them heist. I would put in what doors or what locks. I'd put in any kind of quick cameras. Do they have 180-degree radius, or are they turning? I would have, do they have heat sensors? Do they have motion detectors? Do they have pressure plates on the floors? What happens if a pressure plate is touched? So it could be one of those, like, that pressure plate on that floor, everyone knows that works in the building not to step there because there's a trap. And so in a lot of ways, if you're used to playing a Dungeons and Dragons game, you can just take that into the high tech and into the future, and you can drop a lot of things that most people wouldn't be expecting. But if I was going to booby trap a facility, I would totally have a weird unmarked tile in a hallway leading toward a door that would send off basically lockdown and start heating the room up to a degree that's not comfortable.
Dart trap is very simple from D&D, but instead of rigged with poison, what weird nanite technology do you have now?
It's a great question.
Or what drugs that are kind of crazy?
Yeah, you could just be sending injections of, or even just sedatives. I mean, it could just be, we're just going to put you down. Or you could look at it as that pressure plate opens up 2 doors on the walls and 2 automated turrets come flying out, and they're going to hit anything that moves, good or ill. And the guards are trained not to go into that hallway until they hear the guns spin down and recess back into the wall. So I mean, there's a lot of cool things you can do. But obviously always have a way for them to either bypass it, figure it out. So when I have 3 bypasses, I'm looking for things like, do you kill the guards? Do you bribe the guards? Do you just go around the guards? Do you sneak up behind them and incapacitate them in a different way?
Do you pick the lock? Do you find another door? Do you just brute force it, knowing that that's going to cause suspicion?
Blow down the wall. I mean, there's so many different ways to go. But again, the way you set up the heist of you have to get in and out, it doesn't matter if they're in and out secretly.
Yep.
Sometimes it doesn't, right?
And
sometimes it definitely does.
And also be fluid. So if they find another bypass, run with it.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece. Or if they totally skip this cool trap that you wanted to have them go through,
they don't know where it's at.
Just move it. Like, oh, they skipped that hallway. Okay, why do you care? You're the only one that knows it's in the hallway.
And even if they have plans of the facility, so the plans that they got was 3 years out of date.
Yep, things happen. Things change. Other runners, other Cyberpunk guys, other guys have tried to steal this stuff before, so they keep moving their traps around.
Or the guy that they got it from was a snitch, so they know that somebody's hitting, so they added extra security.
There's that too. You could have a double agent. The guy you bribed actually got more money going back to the corp. Because there's always that thing, it's kind of the Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones. Like, hey, just remember, I can always pay you double what they give you.
Maybe that's how that guy makes money, is he just keeps, hey, you're going to hit there? Cool. Well, hey, Corp, they're going to hit here.
Yeah, so he gets paid by you, and then he gets paid double by the other guys and keeps his job.
Yeah.
He's like the worst paid guard ever. But, hey, he does his job. He knows, he lets everyone know when they're coming to take stuff. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what you can do with heist scenarios in a futuristic type of cyberpunk game. And stay tuned for the next couple of episodes coming out. I mean, probably somewhere around 7 or so. And we'll go ahead and discuss it more. If you're interested in our book, go to skullrpg.com. You will see our book advertised there as well. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening.
And for more resources, please go to skullrpg.com.